Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, Adam Meakin, 10th Man, Arwin joining during my intro, and a whole bunch of people, oh Eli as well, my bad, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Beautiful greetings, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Afternoon.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. Welcome. Did we get the dude that disappeared that was trying to get into the conversation come back in or not?
Yeah, he's not going to join. He appealed a format fallacy.
Yeah,
Appeal to
Nathan,
format?
there's really
No, fill us in.
there's really bad
Hold on,
bad
guys.
feedback.
Hold on,
when
almost
someone
exactly.
speaks from Discord.
Just hold on. Just hold on. Just in the middle of a sentence with this Stagoli guy. Bear with me. So, you said he appealed to format fallacy. What does that mean?
Well, they just talk about your attitude and how you're mean and rude and stuff like that. So it's just another way to be scared, I guess.
I'm mean. I'm in the minority. I'm generally ridiculed by the majority of the westernized world. And yet, this guy's scared to come in to tell us how he knows the Earth's a sphere. Isn't that very telling?
Yeah, and we're online. It's like, what do you think he's going to do to you? I don't understand. It's just, I think they know their arguments are shit, and that you'll. I'm sorry for my language. That their arguments are trash, and that they'll just get devoured. So
Good.
that's what it is.
Good. I'm glad this guy fears me. You should. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
You're going to need R for that.
Yes, you need a radius for that. And I just want to say one thing. If you got great proof, how come you're not in here challenging this flat earth nonsense? I mean, geez, if I had the proof, I'd be here every day hammering this Nathan Oakley character.
Obviously, Neil, being in the majority and having most people behind you with an automatic assumption that you are correct would mean that we're terribly scary and you need a quote-unquote neutral platform with a globe-believing moderator to challenge us when we challenge them on their extraordinary claim that the Earth is a sphere with a physical horizon and drop and so on and so forth, based on R. Any evidence of the R value?
No, I'm MIA. Missing in action.
Well, it was kind of gunned down in action, really, wasn't it? Dear Mrs. R fought really
Fatigued
hard
out.
in the war for Globe Earth, but unfortunately, he died a hero. R will never be forgotten.
Killed by fatigued out black swan.
His brother G
Black swans are killed.
fights on, mortally wounded.
Brother G.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
You need R for that, too.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I was going to do the distance to the sun.
Somebody already took it, said you need R for that.
Requires R.
No, but you can use a sextant to determine it.
Determine what? The height of the sun?
Yep, you just take the right angle, your angle, and the adjacent, and you can calculate the opposite.
Okay. And how have you verified that that intangible object has that actual locational position, as opposed to being a useful guide for the ground below you? The fact that you can take a measurement to this object and utilise it for triangulation to gain the position, and it works, doesn't mean that you can infer the height of the intangible object you're utilising in this particular example. Now, if you're going to quiz me on why it works, I don't know. I can't give you an answer to that. I know it does, and I know how it works and what they do, which is kind of paradoxical if I turn around and say, yeah, but you can't then use this not actual size of an item in the sky to say that you do know its actual position. Furthermore, if you try and get more than one fix on that particular position in the sky, you'll have to do it from multiple locations, and they'll all have different triangulation positions for it. So it's an intangible object. The bottom line is, in terms of its useful nature to gather information about your local position on the ground, yes. In terms of your gathering its position in the sky, no. Unless you want to verify it. I mean, I'm saying it's an intangible object, or the stars for that matter, but if you can verify its actual location, then I'm more than happy to accept its height. Until then, I'm not.
What if I just talk through you when you're giving me a response? Does that help?
Well, I'm not giving you a response. I'm kind of weaseling away from a response. If anything, I'm giving you a paradoxical answer when we try and describe how triangulation works. Now, the way it works is to assume that they're all at the exact same elevation. And when you assume that, it all works out perfectly with right-angled triangles on the ground beneath you. Cushy, right? Until someone like you comes along and says, well, why can't I just use that for the star itself and get its height? And I go, well, because you haven't actually verified where it is in three-dimensional space in that position. You go, well, it works though, doesn't it? And I go, yeah, it does. Well, why does it work? Could be your next question. And I'd go, I don't know. All I know is how it works with a 90-degree angle to the GP of the star. Well, that position below it with an angle to it does give you 90 degrees, can be triangulated, and will give you a position. But do I then accept that that is the actual height of all of the stars? It could be. I don't want to say it isn't that height, because I don't know that either, do I? I haven't invalidated it either. But when someone comes along and says it is, like a flat earther, I'll challenge them to prove it. And triangulating an intangible object, I wouldn't accept.
I could give see, those are known as vertical section measurements. So like if you're by the coastline and there's two lighthouses, you go to your chart and it says on the chart the height of those lighthouses, say 180 feet for one and 200 feet for the other. And it tells you the cliff that it sits on, the height above mean sea level. And you know those things. And then you're able to do the same thing you do with the sun, with the lighthouse, because what you do is you bring the lighthouse down with the mirror to the sea, to the horizon, where the shoreline is. So they do it off land for vertical, but it's the same out in the open ocean for one of the 64 navigational stars the same way. But we don't have a chart for it. We don't know those things that we know about the lighthouse and the cliff. I don't know if that helps a little bit.
Well, I've thought of a better example while you were saying that, which is to say that to gain your first angle, you're taking it from the horizon. Would I therefore infer that I can triangulate an actual position for the horizon? Well, no. But I'm sure I could definitely get 3 people to triangulate it and attempt to measure a physical actual location for that first acquired to get you the 90 degrees. Regardless of how far out the line's drawn, you've still got something in your viewfinder, haven't you? The horizon. Does that mean I can triangulate it, though? No. What about the star itself? You're using it at a set altitude and then drawing a 90-degree assumption with parallel lines to all of the positions below the point of the star. Well, the bit that I accept is, well, then you're getting the accurate point below the star on the ground, which is what you need. But in terms of how high it is from the angle you measure, yes, you can ascribe a number to it, but can you actually go there? No more than you can go to the horizon.
Also, there's the horizontal angle, but you have to turn your sextant sideways and bring the lighthouse to the other one to see the angle difference between the two lighthouses. So that's not vertical, that's horizontal, but you got to turn your sextant sideways. So there's two ways the sextant works. You can even do that with the stars in the sky, a horizontal angle, like moving a star to another star and seeing what the angular difference is.
I did not know that. So my horizon example is identical then. So you can do the same thing with two positions in the sky and gain your angle with the sextant sideways. I'm glad you've said that. Perfect timing. So you can use two intangible objects and still gain an angle from your position and still navigate, and it still works. Still needs a 90 degree to be capable of the... I would assume it's your zenith at that point, right?
Well, you're just measuring from one star to the other, and I guess they do the theodolite works the same way. When they aim at a star and move the other way. I have never used a theodolite, but it's got the same concept.
Okay. Maybe needs a bit of inquiry. But in the same way as I'm asserting that you couldn't use the first position that you gained your 90 degree on a flat plane, that's the assumption that must be in place to work. But it doesn't mean that the position you've used to gain that angle is a physical location, in this case the horizon, and the same applies to the star. The fact that you can work out the angle, the fact that you can drop a location that's directly below that star at that given location at that given time, based on your almanac, does actually work and does actually require the ground be flat. Doesn't mean that I can give you a position for a star in its three-dimensional space. It doesn't mean I can give you a position for the horizon in three-dimensional space. Doesn't mean I can tell you what those things are either. Give you a fair idea if our push came to shove about the horizon, but certainly not the stars.
Well, let me give you the reason why they use the horizon, because I'm more familiar with that. In researching the sextant since January 2020, they use the horizon because you can see it, and it's flat and it's horizontal, right, straight. And you need a 90. Well, that forms your baseline for your 90, because if you get the horizon, then straight above you is 90. If you tried it the other way around, it's impossible, especially on a ship that's in the water. It's hard to get the vertical to be your first solid line. So what they do is they use the horizon, because it's not like you're near land and you got a shoreline that you could shoot. You're in the middle of the ocean. What's your point of reference? Well, it's the horizon. So that's your baseline. Once you have a baseline, straight up is 90. But try it the other way around. It's very difficult. So that's why everything has to be brought down to the horizon. And since in the book, they got the 64 navigational stars positioned every hour, every minute, every second of the day and night, you're able to reference that to triangulate. But again, it goes back to angles, and you need a 90 right angle from the GP to you and to the star. That's why you see the square box and all the images that they put out. Flat earthers didn't put that 90 degree box there. That's how it actually works. People using the sextant are led to believe it works on the globe, but it doesn't, because you can't achieve an angle with a curved surface. That's just preposterous.
Yeah, so what I was saying in the pre-show about that is, like, you know, with the depiction of the globe and the two circles on it where you can't see the rest of the circle in red. And the thing about that is, so if you're taking a reading from the horizon and the horizon is curving away from you and it's only straight for 4 miles, 5 miles, it's going to go straight out into the space. The line is not going to meet the GP of the star overhead.
Correct.
So.
Well,
Yes, that's
through the
correct. I just
language.
hold on. I've got a depiction of that. There we go. So what Eli's just explained is on screen for the audience. You've got your zenith. You've then got the GP of the star, which will be considered to be below at 90 degrees from where you measure it. So in terms of this depiction, it would be along this line. That's the angle. If you're at this position where it says zenith, meeting the bottom of this crazy notion of the ground curving away from you, that would put it lower in three-dimensional space. And it wouldn't give you the 90-degree angle that you must have in order to triangulate it. So in terms of this depiction, the 90-degree point would be below this line on the top of the sphere. Now, in yesterday's episode of Flat Earth Debate, 10th Man took us through how they take this line, which is the equator, and simply transpose it up on top of the sphere for the measurements to actually take place, ignoring the fact that you've got an 8 inches per mile squared drop from your position in all directions, making it impossible, if you actually take the assumed curved surface of the ground beneath your feet, which it is not, you can't acquire the 90-degree angle to the star that you're triangulating. So it fails. Yes, Eli.
Wait, they always talk about it having to be perpendicular. Someone please explain what perpendicular is.
So in the same depiction, you've got your star with extra lines being drawn in to 90 degrees to the flat surface to give you 90 degrees to this first star. That's parallel, the line of the GP from the top to the bottom on the ground is parallel with the zenith at your position. So this line is parallel with the line to the GP of the star, where you get 90 degrees here. Well, the same thing would apply to a star that was above this position. So if we say this line represents where this star is going to be for our second triangulation point, then it would be below, at this point, 90 degrees to the angle you've measured up to the star. Well, that line has to also be parallel. So this line with the GP of the star below it, this line which meets your zenith, and this line for the GP of the star that you're triangulating on the other side, all must be parallel for it to work. They all must have 90 degrees for it to work. It cannot be curving away from you, as Eli's pointed out, because then it puts it in a different position in three-dimensional space.
Good morning, peeps.
Good morning, Chocolate. Are you there, Adam?
Chocolate.
Hold on, was that...
I am, yeah, I'm back, mate. Sorry, just...
I think there's somebody trying to get a word in from Discord. We'll just get the opinions from Discord, then I want to talk about our base measurements of star distances. Go ahead, whoever it was from Discord.
Yeah,
Eric, go ahead.
that was me. So, like, originally we started talking about the sextant because I was talking about the distance to the sun. That was the question, like the housekeeping question. So, like, I'm still learning about the sextant and how it works exactly, but forgive me if I don't understand this correctly. So in we're not actually doing trigonometry. We're just referencing the almanac to get the adjacent line across the bottom, right? Is that right?
No.
Huh?
No. Your almanac will tell you where the star is above geographically. So where on the ground is that star above when you measure it? That's what the almanac will tell you. The first line is acquired from the horizon.
So that gives you but that's called the adjacent, and like in trigonometry, that's called the adjacent line, right? But you don't have to calculate if you didn't have the almanac at all, and you just took you knew that there was the star was in its position, it was straight a right angle to the ground, and you had your angle from you to the star, and you had no lengths of the height to the star or the adjacent, like it's called the opposite and adjacent, right? You can't do trigonometry, right?
If you don't have the position to the line where it is, so you can draw a circle to position yourself on the outside edge of the circle, then no, you couldn't do it. You'd need to know where it was. You're trying to figure out where you are based on where they are. They're always where they're going to be, and we know that to the second. So that's why you're using that as your reference. You don't know where you are, and you're saying, well, I know where that star is, so let's figure out where I am. by way of triangulation. Without that information, no, you're dead in the water. Unfortunately, that's...
Yeah, exactly. That's why you need the almanac, right? Because it tells you where the star is, so you can continue with your trigonometry.
Correct.
So now, if you assume the height of the sun, right? Like by doing trigonometry in the first place, now you know what you assume is the height of the sun or the distance to the sun. You could you not like start plotting like say you lost your almanac and you just like left the coast, right? Could you not just use the assumed height of the sun to calculate your adjacent line and then plot yourself as you go without an almanac?
No, because you don't know where the sun's positionally either, do you? You don't know where it's over. You're just looking at the sun. If you're an open ocean, you've got nothing to look at and you've just got the sun, and you don't know where is that sun over at that particular point, how are you supposed to use it for anything useful?
Because you know it's at a 90, and then you have your angle, and then you can use, I can't remember if it's sine, cosine, or tan. You have one side of the triangle.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which
But where do you place? Yeah, but on the ground, where do you place the GP of the star to draw your first line out? So you're drawing a line with the sextant to the horizon, but that line may be before the horizon. But just for the sake of example, we'll say it's beyond the horizon. Or you've got to find that position on the ground below the sun in this example to put your compass into the map and draw a circle around it.
Maybe I'm not getting it, so I still have to study more.
This is complicated, don't worry. I'm lucky because for 12 months solid, I was drip-fed the information by 10th man. I can't believe I know the answer to this, to be perfectly honest. There we go.
It's the same for me. Like, I'm on the internet's just, dropping stink bombs everywhere. And I'm like, how do I know this? Thanks, 10th.
Exactly. I do exactly the same thing in the shower. I'm like, how did I have that row? Oh yeah, thanks, Quantum Eraser. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy subject to wrap your head around. And this is advanced globe debunking flat earth proof. Very advanced. I've come across this subject before. It never sank in. The importance it just wasn't relevant to me. It didn't seem that important. And it takes someone like 10th Man to dig into it in a deep way after the Black Swan and say, right, well, how can we expand upon this? If they're utilising a dip angle measurement to a physical assumed horizon, and it's not a physical horizon to get a dip angle measurement for, what is it actually being used for? Well, it's being used to acquire 90 degrees out to an infinite expanse. Could be literally as far as you like away. It's the only limitation being the perspective to the star that drops towards the horizon as you move from it. Now, when you get to a certain point, there's a certain amount of crap in the air that you've got to get around anyway. So they don't advise you do it beneath about 10 or 15 degrees because it distorts the position as you look through a lot of air. Now, that's actual refraction. Light deviating from straight. That's all refraction is. Not to be confused with 7/6 of a radius value terrestrial refraction in standard form, or any variation of a R-based assumption, i.e. light bending through an atmosphere. Sphere-shaped air. Does light deviate from straight? Yes. It's refraction. Does light deviate through straight when travelling through an assumed sphere-shaped air? No. But that's what they will infer. So what are you left with? You're left with a measurement that's being taken to the horizon, and the only additional step is to take your eye line down to the ground that you're assuming is straight to an infinite distance that you can see below a star. Not infinite, but I can't give a value to it off the top of my head during this ramble. So that's it. That's the information you got to go on. The ground beneath me is flat. And how will I get it? Well, I'll look out at what is essentially my eye level. Now, my eye level might be higher than the ground, so I'll reduce it down to the ground. Then I've got level. And anything that meets it, intersects it below it, is at 90 degrees to it, on the level plane that I'm measuring out to. All you then need is the extra bit of the triangle, and you can do triangulation. That's it. It's just that simple.
You know what's crazy? My hand sort of looks like a protractor or a sextant. Like you point the thumb straight up 90 degrees, and then you have your pinky and it's pointed straight out.
You talking about doing finger guns? You're doing finger guns right now?
Well, no. Well, I guess you could do finger gun, but actually, I have my hand open all the way, and I can only imagine that the fingers can be used for degrees, because that's what it looks like to me, and that's what people have said that they have used their hands for. I'm gonna look into that. I mean, I could just be
No, they
making
do.
stuff up.
They do, Eli.
Yeah,
You just go.
I saw images of that on Google.
Yeah, just go look at it. Like one finger is 1 degree, and then they use a fist. I can't remember where the fist is, and then they open up the thumb and the pinky way out, and I think that's 20-something degrees. And you can just point at the sky, or you can work from the horizon up to a star, and that's how they did it when they didn't have it.
See, I mean, like, but see, if you don't have the mental flexibility to think about these things, well, let me say it like this. The only reason that I would think of that is because I've actually looked into it. I didn't take what 10th Man said like other good little students, you know, in these schools and go, oh, yeah, what you said is right. I'm going to go with that. Like, I'm trying to figure out how it's useful, how it's practical, how it works.
I mean, in this case, it's practical and useful for finding your direction when navigating. Something I'd want to learn, right? If I was going to go out to sea and investigate and explore, I'd want to know how to do this. I'd want to know how to do it so well that I could do it without having to look up anything. So I could just do the rough maths on a napkin.
Did you see the perpendicular slide I put up in Masterbase?
No, but I'll get it. Okay, it's on screen now.
Yeah, all right. What's that box there? What's that box saying?
90. This blue box.
Yeah. All right, well, just go read on the sextant from the baller's view. I don't care. It's got to be that. That's your baseline, meeting the GP of the sun or star. It's got to be perpendicular. 2 straight lines or 1 straight line, 1 curved line. Which one is it?
It's 2 straight lines. You're never going to achieve triangulation on a sphere. This is another globe killer. It's also a flat earth proof, because you can't do it on a curved surface. In order for it to work, it must be flat. You must assume that the ground on the maps is also flat and corresponding to a flat measurement that you take to the GP of the star. So in every respect, this is being done flat.
Yeah, I was listening to, Brian told me to listen to Brandon's show, and I don't go to other shows, so I don't have time for it. But I guess it was last Friday's show, and they were talking about the sextant, and Adam was on it with Brian's logic, and so I said, well, send it to me. He says, yeah, just scroll along, maybe 1 hour mark. So I did, and so there's this guy there, and I think his name was Kool-Aid, I'm not sure. He said that he's a sailor and used the sextant, but he never did a dip correction. And it said it's a nothing. There's nothing to it. You just aim at the horizon. And so Brian had to remind him that, hey, if you're 10 feet up on a boat, plus if you're a 6-foot man, that's 16 feet you got to minus in your dip correction to get to your eyeballs to be on the surface of the water for that baseline. So I guess what I'm trying to say is people who are familiar with the sextant really don't know how it works. And if he says he does, and he didn't even know what a dip angle correction was, what does that tell you about their knowledge of the sextant? I mean, all you got to do is just go out there and watch a few videos and read the manual of a couple of sextant manufacturers. It's like one of the most important things you got to do, because you got to get it to 0. You didn't even know about it.
Doesn't surprise me. Somebody from the chat, James2, says, what's GP? So on screen you've got this guy, and I don't quite know why the sextant's coming out of his crotch, but it is. Nevertheless, despite the fact that this guy using his dick for a sextant, he's got the angle up to the star. the GP would be the straight line that comes down to meet at 90 degrees to the parallel surface that you're measuring to get a triangle. So you've got a 90-degree triangle, the 90 degree will be here to the GP. So the GP is the position below the star, so that you can draw this line as a radius, which would mean that you can draw a circle on your map all the way around the central point of that GP. So the star's position on the ground below where it meets at 90 degrees to your position with this guy's genital sextant. Let's find a different picture.
I'm not able to see what you're showing. What was that all about?
A guy with the angle coming out of his crotch for some reason. I don't know why.
Wow.
Next picture, circle of equal altitude. So in the same depiction that I've just shown you, you had the star and the GP would be on the ground. This would be where the guy was standing, measuring an angle up to it with the GP below it, and then any of these lines, because you could be at any position when you take your first measurement around this circle. So you've got a radius value, so you can literally stick a compass into your map and draw a circle, and that gives you your area of equal altitude below the GP of the star. You might need 2, you might need 3 in order to find a position where they cross, and that will give you your fix. Hope that answers your question, James.
I got a slide for you in Master V, Nathan, that I made up.
Okay.
Sextant works on a plane with light at funny angles. I'm sorry, there's the one before that. I haven't sent you that one. How a sextant actually works. 90 degrees, the zenith position of a star here, the sun. The GP would be directly underneath. There's your perpendicular. And 3 sailboats representing where 3 navigators might be in the angles to that GP. And there would be a circle of equal altitudes for all 3. And that baseline has to be flat in order to triangulate. It's got to have a right angle. There's no other way.
Shout out to Rob L. He says, the year of the sextant. Well done, 10th man. Yeah, I totally agree. Good call out for props. So I hope, again, this answers your question. Much better diagram, so as it's an actual depiction of how a GP works. So if you were at this first position in this sailboat, in this example, we're going to assume that the horizon is actually prior to the GP of the star. So you measure out to, this is going to be your horizon, albeit in Muppet vision. Yes, I'll grant you it's Muppet vision. Anyway, you're measuring out 90 degrees to this position. So if you're saying, right, I'll stick my sextant on the horizon, you're measuring this position over here. And you're assuming that the line between you and it is a flat line, so that when you measure your angle to the light that you're looking at in the sky, you can have it meet at the ground at a 90-degree angle. Don't mention the 90-degree angle!
I got some more coming for you.
Okie doke. Thanks again for the super chat, by the way, Rob L. Really appreciate the support.
Before you flick that picture, I noticed Mitchell from Australia on this week, and this is a great example of what I know. We were talking about taking a drone out and measuring its angle, and he actually did it in reality, which I thought was cool to exemplify the point. Whether that sun on that diagram's a drone or not, you can see that the premise of the measuring of the angle is perspective, and it's telling you where it is relative to those 2 planes, the one attained on the bottom by your sextant and the one on the top. So the GP and the angle, the commensurate angle you get from it, relates, as we've said, to the ground position. The further away it is, the further away that ground position is, the further away the sun, the star in the sky is, and therefore the lower the angle will be, less, the smaller the angle will be. The closer you are to it, the greater the angle will be, as demonstrated by the boats. That's the principle of using the sextant, and it's based on that. And when we go back, if we can go back in a bit to 10th other pictures, just want to remember that little bit. That's the principle. The angle that's generated is because of distance on the plane across the two planes. But that worked. Yeah, this is quite interesting. I think I'll throw a few numbers out there. So 10th did that, and if you look at the other picture, Nathan, where you're close in on the Gulf Coast, so you can see the sun. There, I just did a quick measurement between where the sun's position was and where the arc. That's it. Now, the way I took the top of the arc, which turned out to be somewhere in Armenia, and that's 3,100 kilometers. Which, as a ball destroying point, what I would say across that there would be 759 kilometers of drop, which wouldn't be accounted for. So you wouldn't have your straight baseline in terms of applying it to the ball. But that distance is also interesting because when I worked out the drop, you get, I do it via trig as well. And when you apply the cosine to it, it comes out that you're calculating a traversement distance. Then this is a the sphere ball distance, or a real distance. You calculate 28 degrees before you apply the cosine to it, which mathematically is interesting, because when the ballers talk about their 69 miles per degree of movement, okay, they attribute that to rotation. And if you take that 3,000 kilometers is 1950 miles, divide it by 69, you get the same 28 degrees. And that's what they're attributing it to, is that curvature. That's what they try and claim. But there's actually, so when you apply it like that, you can create a ball. But the reality is that 28 degrees is 28 degrees out of kilter, and also 759 kilometers out on your triangles. So I think yesterday when you're showing that they have to calculate it flat, and what they then do is pervert it back with this assumption of 1 degree per 69 miles, which then lets you pretend that every single bit of angular difference is due to your position, and therefore the consequent curvature difference it creates, as opposed to any effect of perspective, as nicely demonstrated by the drone going across the lake.
Right, they've hijacked it.
Yeah.
This is where I actually beautifully wanted to segue across to you about exactly this. So first point, before we do, we'll come back to the 1 degree every 69 miles in a second, but this depiction on screen is incapable of giving you a radius, because the line to the outside edge of the area of equal altitude is now bent. So it's no longer giving you a radius for the circle that they've drawn. So where do they get the radius for the circle? Well, they'd have to draw a chord from this point and slice off the top of the sphere in order to do it. That's the first point. Back to your point about them hijacking perspective, they're taking 1 degree to mean 69 miles as they move away from something in terms of how it drops towards the horizon with perspective. But when they triangulate the stars, and this comes back to the guy's point from Discord when he was asking about triangulating the sun, they do it the other way round. That would be to say that they make the measurement, like I've said, no, it's not reasonable to triangulate that position in 3-dimensional space when you can't verify it. It's intangible. It's moving as you move. Well, that particular triangulation measurement is then taken to insert R after the fact, when the measurement's been taken, because it can't be done on a curved surface, to then give you your 69 degrees 1 mile, 1 degree, after insertion of R after triangulation on a flat plane. Correct, Adam?
Yeah, for it to work, what you've got to do is what I did, is to take the outside. So you've got to go into 3D spherical trigonometry, yeah, to get it to fit onto the map. If you just put that circle on, as they're claiming, it will be in a different place, you see, yeah? So then when they claim the 69 degrees 69 miles per degree, that's what works on the surface of their ball or on the flat plane with perspective. But what they can't do is do the sextant trig just straight onto the ball without the pre-assumption
Exactly.
and the need for R.
Exactly. So, in other words, the good thing about this particular proof for a flat Earth, I might say, it does also debunk the globe very nicely, I might add. But the reason this is a good flat Earth proof is because when they come to start justifying it, which a couple of them have gone to the efforts of doing, I will grant them that, that isn't how it's actually done. So you can say, well, we can do the spherical trig to draw a chord to get a radius for this GP. And you go, well, that's nice. However, that's not how it's done. There's no back engineering the sphere that you've assumed by taking triangulation measurements and adding R. Yeah? When you come back to actually just measuring the triangulation, there wasn't an R to begin with. Yeah? You added it after the fact. So when you've added it, to get back to doing the real triangulation, you've got to subtract it. You've got to get rid of the curve. And that's precisely how it's done. It's done on a flat plane. So trying to engineer it back in when it's absolutely crucial that it's not curved isn't a possibility anymore. So as much as they'd like to show us diagrams and say, well, this is how it's done on a sphere, well, that might be how it would be done on a sphere, but it isn't done that way when you're actually out at sea triangulating. It's done flat. That's a fact. As much as you can show me it being done in that way, that isn't how it's done. And it can't be done that way.
Can you just make that point that you just previously made about how they get the 69 degrees after inserting the presupposed radius?
Yeah, so they add it. It's a relatively well-known, if you've been around in the arena for a long time, Red Rhetoric video that was pulled apart by Smokescreen Design. And he shows the trig as Red Rhetoric talks his uninformed audience through the assumption of R. Here's how I do the triangulation. Here's where I insert the R value, because we already know we're on a sphere, so we've got to add this R value, says Red Rhetoric. Yeah, he just takes you through the maths of adding in the presupposition of an R value, which of course pushes the distance of the stars that he's measuring and triangulating out to astronomical distances when he's triangulating them. And look how close the maths comes when I just insert an R value. Now, I'll say it again because I said it at the beginning of the show. The starting point for that assumption where he inserts R is just the standard triangulation that I poo-poo when people come up with, 4,000 kilometres or something?
Yeah, about
5, yeah.
How many did you say? 5?
He's about nearer 5, isn't it? But
4,000 something and something. But yeah, you know, you can feel free to triangulate the horizon or the star if you like, but I don't know what it is, you don't know what it is, it's not a tangible item that you can get to and verify. So yes, it works, and it must work for the bit that's crucial. The position below the star on the ground and the 90-degree angle for the flat plane that must meet it. Those are the only bits we need to use this as a flat Earth proof. In terms of where the stars are and how they work, it doesn't matter, they work. They do this actual work. This is when you're talking about maths doing work, the work of travelling around the place, not the maths of explaining away something that doesn't have a phenomena that's been conjured into existence through maths and then ascribed to something that occurs when you pick something up and drop it and is violated by gas law. Not that kind of mathematical work, but the kind of, I can stick a compass on a map and say that below this star is the position that I'm going to draw 90 degrees out to, and then a line directly down to that flat plane in order to figure out where the hell I am. That kind of life-saving work.
Nathan, do you remember in the past shows I said this kills the globe because of the circle of equal altitude, that GP to U holding the sextant has to be a straight line. It's a two-dimensional circle. It's got a radii, a radius. That's a straight line. So, and I said it just plows through refraction. I don't care what kind of refraction you want to put there, because it's got to be straight. So they've got a circle, a two-dimensional circle. They even call it a circle of equal altitude. And the sun's in the middle of it, and you're on one part of that circle. You just don't know where until you take your second reading. And for more precise fix, take a third reading. But that distance from the GP of the star to you, that radius is straight. They've got that on top of a sphere. It's not the sphere. It's not a sphere of equal altitude. It's a circle of equal altitude.
So let me ask you this.
Hang on. It's contradictory right there.
So let me ask you this, and please continue. So is circle a synonym for sphere? And then is there anything that is that a thing?
No, they're very different things.
Two-dimensional.
Circle's two-dimensional, sphere's three-dimensional.
Because they would definitely call it sphere of equal altitude if that had any meaning, right?
Well, no, you'd have to involve a chord. If you're cutting through the sphere to achieve the 90, as depicted on screen now, you've got to have a flat level surface to meet it at 90 degrees below the star at its GP. So, no, unless you slice off the top of the sphere, no. That's what Adam just went through. You can do it with the sphere back engineering it. Well, you could. If it was required, you'd have to. But it isn't, and they don't. Right, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah, but the only way you can do it is with R. You need the R to backwork it into the sphere. So that's why I said when I had to work out the distance, well, I've got a ratio within the sphere that every kilometre travelled on the surface of the sphere equates to 0.009 of a degree. So what I then have to do is take that and use that into my calculations. But I don't need to unless I want to pretend I'm doing it on a sphere. Or I could just do it flat and get the exact distance on the flat map with flat calculations. I don't have to go in there, but to do it, I have to pre-assume R and use that R in there for it to fit the ball.
And to push the line out and have the curved surface in the first instance, you've taken flat measurements to do triangulation, then inserted R.
A bit like Red's rhetoric. You know, you go, what you're doing there, you see, is you're bending. So when, like, Reds did it, and he said, oh, here's point person A, here's person B. Now, we're going to pre-assume R, so we're going to change the actual real life measurement and bend it, change the angle again based on R, based on how much he's travelled. So that's what Reds had to do to be on a ball, to put it into a ball for his mass to continue on a ball. And that's what you can do here, but you don't need to when you're on a boat at sea. You just keep it flat and it works.
I got some more slides there for you, Nathan.
Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Sextant works on a plane with light at funny angles. Is that the one?
Yeah, so since we know light is coming in divergent, corpuscular rays, it works. And here you are. This could be circle of equal altitude, where it's right in the middle is the GP and both distances. So from that sailboat from the left to right, it's say 3,000 miles, that radius of that circle, or all the way to the other end where there might be a boat. That'd be 6,000 miles of flat. It has to be perpendicular. You have to have that 90. This is the way the sextant works. And they do what you and Adam just talked about. After they measure it flat, they fool everybody and say it's on the globe. You can't put a two-dimensional circle with a straight radii on a globe. You lose a straight radius line, which means you don't have an angle anymore to the GP. It can't work. Sextant could only work on a flat surface. Need a zero baseline. Now, if they want to change what perpendicular means, and they want to change what a right angle triangle is, if they want to change what a zero baseline is, and fool themselves, go ahead.
This is epic. and painful. You know, for the people who've rolled down the hill that want to scramble their way back up in a delusional belief that they can become ignorant, globe-believing normies again. This is painful stuff. Yeah, we all know it's flat though, so this isn't at all painful for me. It doesn't affect me in the slightest. It's just, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It is just flat, so why wouldn't you do it this way?
That second slide.
Let me point out,
Eli, let me
before
finish
we
that
get-
second. Just let me finish that other slide. How a sextant cannot work, and it shows the curve. Do you see that one, Nathan?
How a sextant cannot work.
Yeah,
No.
it shows a tangent line and then a curved surface underneath with a boat with an X.
Ah, yes. Hey.
All right, so here's how it cannot work. It's what Adam was just describing with Nathan in the back and forth you just heard. So they measure it flat, the top line, and then they try to put it on the globe, the bottom curvature there. And they get away with the pictures because you ballers fall for it, but then you can't get an angle anymore because you can't get an angle with a curved surface. So obviously that sailboat that's on the curved line isn't shooting a 90-degree right angle to that sun's GP. The sailboat on top of the flat tangent line is able to get that angle to be achieved. So you can never achieve it from that curve. And what Brian has successfully shown everyone is you'd have to put a cord. You have to chop off that arc. Well, who's chopping off the arc to get it? It's nonsense.
Yeah, that's not being done. It's being done flat. Anyone
All right, Eli.
Go on, Eli.
yeah, I just wanted to say, when the ballers in chat, say, oh, the reason I'm not getting on the show is just Nathan is rude, he wants to be here, blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is, he was that way before I got to the show. You guys had no issues joining. You guys had no issues debating when you thought that there wasn't, objective truths to be had. And then when the Black Swan came along and this is where they began to drop off, because there really is no, before they could say something on video and it might sound dumb, but it might not, at least to them. But I don't think they can hear themselves talking about the Black Swan. And I think they know they sound dumb, but it's even more telling because no one has come on, not one, to say you're wrong. I navigate. This is how it works. That's not how it works. Not once.
Instead, it's don't talk about the 90 degrees. No.
That wasn't even here. That was somewhere else.
I know they would never say that shit here. Fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That no, don't mention the 90 degrees. It's not needed. We're only measuring the angle to the star, and that's it. That's all we need. It's like, all right. Well, what about doing the triangulation bit? Don't you need the rest of the triangle for that? Where are you going to get that from your curved surface? Well, let's show you where they get it from the curved surface. And they don't, do they? If this guy was triangulating this star, and he started with a tangent to his position, well, he's not going to acquire 90 degrees with that. Don't mention the 90. This is how it's actually done on this line. Yeah, just easy. Just line out from every position's flat. Because that's how the world actually is.
Well, they got a
everybody,
problem.
Nathan.
Hey, Brian.
Brian. Go on, Brian. I'll follow up.
No, I'd say what I say afterwards. Thank you. Go ahead, man.
Okay, yeah. So the whole point is the zenith position of the sun or one of the other 63 navigational stars over the Earth. That's what's in the Nautical Almanac. They don't have any other positions. They only have the zenith positions for these navigational stars. Now, what is that zenith? That's 90 degrees. That's directly overhead somewhere on the Earth. What do you mean don't mention 90 degrees? The whole book is about 90 degrees.
Yeah, so on that map, you're drawing 90-degree lines or dropping lines down from every star position to every point below it on the ground. They're not going to bend away from you relative to your position. That's just some nonsense you have to assume if you're on a sphere. Everything's relative to you standing on the top of it, bending away at 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that nonsense doesn't pad out when you've got parallel lines needed to triangulate your position. Suddenly, they've all got to be lining up on a flat plane with 90 degrees below all of them, meaning it's all flat.
Yeah, you need parallel zeniths. It doesn't work without parallel zeniths.
Right, and every parallel zenith's got 90 degrees meeting, and you can triangulate any amount of circles around it, and they'll all meet at 90 degrees, parallel zeniths for every single star, lots of lines dropping to the ground below from every single star. All parallel.
You know, Adam's about to present something. Like, I talk in the after show.
Just to add to that, I like Tan's picture. You know, the one I was talking about before, the 3D globe where he's put the stuff on and I've done a few numbers. If we apply that sun stuff to here, and what's going to happen is this. So this is your new triangle that's formed. Now, no longer is this a right angle. Look, you can see that it's not supposed to be curved, but you can see it's become obtuse. It's now more than 90 degrees, and in actual fact on those you'd add the 28 degrees, so this angle now would be 118 degrees in their model when they convert it. So you can now see that there is no longer, when they place their measurements onto their ball, there is no longer a right angle. That right angle has been extended because it's come down there, look. This bit's that's the lines they're drawing, supposedly. And like I say, this is the segment. But you can see why it perverts it, and you no longer have your right angle.
Perfect. It's nice having Adam on the show to actually scroll it out. No offence.
Oh, there's so many things you can do because, as I said, and I thank Adam for doing this, because the book for you to navigate by has all the stars at a zenith position over an Earth perpendicular to the horizon. It's a 90. If for them to say don't mention 90, then you might as well throw out the nautical almanac.
Throw it out.
Well, if you throw out the nautical almanac and all you got is a sextant, you don't know where the sun directly is overhead, and you're lost again.
Throw it out anyway.
There's no getting around it. The world that we actually dwell atop is actually flat. And as much as this is painful for some of the people watching, that's tough. That is just the world we live on.
When it comes to the fundamentals of navigation, would you say that they are jumping ship?
Very good, Eli.
They're all overboard, trying to drag us under as we try and swim away to shore.
Maybe we can get Max Planck here to help us.
Or Bob from Cork.
Jack, the boat, Jack.
Not the rum.
In the last few seconds, has anybody got anything to challenge this from Discord? I should really ask. Shockingly, no. Fair enough. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!